This. You ready? Folks, we have a lot of musicians across the way waiting for us.
Yep.
I hope. You're going to
They
start
are.
without us.
They are.
So all we have to do here is our call to order, which I'm about to do now at 7:04. And if the secretary, please, Ms. Devine, would take attendance.
Anthony Amato. Here. Valerie Anderson. Here. Alan Brown.
Here.
Gregory Cava. He was here. I'm here. Michelle Gora. Here. Emily Hibbard. James Hirschfield.
Not here.
Jennifer Pody. Here. Michael Sinatra. Here. Peter Tagley. Here. Sydney Warble. Here.
Excellent. Thank you. Our first item on the agenda is to move to the auditorium for the music department presentation. This puppy up. All right, we are back. On behalf of the Board of Education, I'd like to say hello. There we go. I'd just like to say that concert was great. We have really talented kids, and we have really talented teachers who I think brought more out of the kids than I've heard in a while. Really a great job. Really great on both aspects. Okay, opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items. Anyone, is there any public? We have no public. All right, hearing nothing, we proceed to the consent agenda. You all have it in front of you. We have 3 items. Does anybody want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Hearing nothing, we will passively pass the consent agenda and move on to the report of the chair. I am not the chair. I'm sitting in for Jim Hirschfield, who is out of town. There is no report. Superintendent's report. Dr. Cosentino.
Hi, everyone. I also want to say great job to the music teachers and the students. I think they did a wonderful job. I hope that you notice the progression of the music program. And really, the staff is working very well together to make sure that the curriculum is aligned, that they're building on skills, and when they finally get to Shepaug, you can really see the growth of all that hard work that goes on in the elementaries. So we have a really great team, and we're hoping they all remain for a long time. So thank you, and we will send them thank yous, of course. And thank you to the parents who came, because that's wonderful that they came out tonight. We have a field trip. We need an approval for, I'm going to do a little more correspondence, but I'm just going to get this done. Connecticut Appalachian Trail, hiking from June 17th to the 22nd. If we can.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Yes, how does that work since it was
That,
graduation?
that is Michael Nolan's trip, and I'm not, is it a club? Is it, I think you sign up for it, am I right? Service.
Service organization, it's just like teaching kids good things about community service.
Right. They begin on the New York border, where they enter near Bulls Bridge, and at the end of the Massachusetts border near Bear Mountain. There are 8 students and 2 adults. So,
So it's not just hiking, it's camping then too, I guess.
yes, because it's the
5
17th,
days,
18th,
yeah.
19th, 20, 21, yeah, 5 nights.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. So,
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Thank you.
okay, so I just want to give a shout out to our alum, Kate Anderson Brower, whose newest book is out, First Women, number 6 on the New York Times bestsellers list, and her mom is a board member, so we're very, very excited, and I believe her father also has his book out, Chris Anderson, am I right?
Absolutely.
What's the title of that book?
It's called Game of Crowns. It's about the royal succession and the controversy that's brewing.
So a lot of writing happening at the Anderson family, so this is great. I have to tell you, I was in the airport this week. I read Kate's first book, The Residents, and there it was in the airport, soft cover, and I was like, wow, I know an author who's right there. It was very exciting for me. And I don't even know her. Isn't this beautiful? It was wonderful.
Dedication too.
Okay, so we'll look into that. So congratulations.
Thank you. Sorry to drag, but
No, are you kidding?
She spent 4 years under this roof.
Absolutely,
She learned a lot of things in creative writing here.
absolutely. We have to turn on our things, don't forget, our little things. You want to say that again? No, really? Say it again. Kate is an alum of Shepaug and spent 4 years under this roof, learned everything about creative writing she knows from Shepaug, and I believe it was her senior project, am I right?
Yes, because, no, honestly, this is true. Of course, she comes from a writing family, but she started working the Waterbury Republican, covering meetings, sometimes boring, sometimes not so much, doing feature stories on interesting people that live in our town, and that's where she got her start, and then she went to CBS, Fox, Bloomberg, covered the White House. Then when she had children, she decided to write. So it's about finding your path. It's not that you're an English major, you're an English major that knows a hell of a lot about journalism. And that starts here. Thank you.
And with great parents, too, so congratulations
bet.
to you, Val.
The mother is gorgeous.
Absolutely, I hear that. Did you want to say something?
All I want to say is that I hope we can make sure that the word on Kate's story and her wonderful books, that this gets out to the students here.
Absolutely.
It's an inspiration to our kids
Absolutely.
to see what a Shepaug grad does, and I think that would be terrific.
That's wonderful. Okay.
I'm sorry, one more thing. There's going to be a book signing at Hickory Stick on the 12th, the day after graduation, and it's for Kate and for Chris. It's a dual
Oh.
thing. So bring your
Very fun.
checkbook. Now I'm off.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, man, yes. Go, Kate. But she talks to Chris a lot, and the two of them have shared stories. And
That's
contacts
wonderful.
And what to do and how to do it, and to calm down.
Right. Okay, next thing on my list is on the table in the back, we have purchased the signs for the vote, and we're just asking as you leave to please give them to your friends, people who live in the towns. They are reusable, so we don't want them back, because they just say Tuesday. So you can only put them out after May 4th, which is Wednesday, and because the vote is going to be May 10th. Okay, so every year, just keep your sign, and the little H thing is back there, and then we also bring some to the schools. We purchased 100 of these, but we did not do a mailer. We thought that we didn't want to spend unneeded money, hopefully, but we are doing, you should receive the newsletter. Karen Files finished the newsletter. It's on both sides. And this is our new logo, so I think it looks nice. I do want to thank Don O'Leary, who, him and his staff worked very hard this week while we were off. I hope you had a chance to see the cafeteria. It is painted. And the lockers are out of the area by the gym, and that's almost done. I believe some of the shelving is in there. There are new doors at Burnham that were replaced. Color codes of wings were put in the elementary schools to help with safety and security and school climate. And the group room east has been rugged, carpeted, or floored. Thank you. Be resilient floored, and it looks great. So if you have a chance, so they really work hard, and I appreciate what they did. The kids got a kick out of the cafeteria today.
Pat, could I add something to that? Because I toured all these things with Don after our facilities meeting, and I will tell you that if you go down the athletic hall, what you will see is a big hole in the wall at the end of these display cases that are they've just been installed, they're not trimmed out and everything. You'll see a big hole in the wall, and that hole is where we are building a display case that will be used to display all of our Shepaug gear that is currently in the fast breaking down armory in the hallway there. The doors, some of the doors don't work on that thing anymore. They're now going to be displayed behind glass so kids can look at them and be able to purchase those things in the school. So.
Great. I do want to wish all of our secretaries and administrative assistants, I don't know what the difference is, but a happy Administrative Assistant Week. We had a little luncheon today for our women at Central Office, and they are fabulous. So just, thank you for all you do. They really are the first defense at our schools. They have smiles. They treat our students and our families with respect, and they're friendly, and they do a great job. So thank you for all you do. Some of us were here on April 13th. I just want to let you know that Todd Dyer and the counselors did a great job on a workshop with UConn, and it was, your wife was there, and there were a lot of people there. I was there, my sister was there, and my niece was there, and they did a mock workshop. Diane, I forget her last name, from UConn Torrington, who was a counselor for many, many years, passed out resumes and applications, and we as a group at different tables had to look at them and see if we would admit kids, if we wouldn't, what we liked, what we didn't like. So the kids got to hear firsthand from a college admission officer exactly what they're looking for, and it was an excellent workshop. I was very, very happy to attend that. And I guess the last thing I just want to mention is I brought this up at the first meeting today for long-range plans. So don't take one if you have it. You can get this off the CABE website, but over the holiday, Nick Caruso, who does the Lighthouse Project at CABE, which is a Connecticut Department of Education sponsored, so it's no cost to the board. They do a series of workshops to help the board focus on best practices, to look at data, and it really just kind of fits with what we're talking about with the long-range plan. So they do have room for us for next year. It would be probably an average of one time every 4 to 6 weeks, which we could make a schedule. And Nick Caruso from CABE is tentatively coming on May 23rd. And he'll explain the program to us, and then we'll decide if we're interested. But I think it's, I hear very good information from other districts. New Fairfield's using it, Region 1 is using it, and then many other districts around the state. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to work together and work on best practices and strategies, and also give us insight as we work on our strategic plan. So it's just information. I took it off the website. There's more there, but I'll let you know when he's going to be here. Hopefully it's May 23rd. And that is my report. Thank you.
Okay, under Superintendent's report actually is our next
right.
item, which is the CABE Convention Review. In November of each year, the CABE and CAPS has a convention in Mystic. And I went years ago, but Michelle Gora always goes, and she is going to give us her first ever full report on this year's convention.
Okay, someone will help you if you can't.
While she's figuring that out, I just want to add to the what Dr. Cosentino said about the UConn admissions officer who came. What was great, I heard from my son and wife who went, was that she gave them applications and resumes so that they could be the admittors and see what it was like. And I just remember the first time I was ever an employer and not an employee, and being able to have someone apply to me for a job. It's an entirely different perspective. And you wonder, how could this person know or not know what they're doing? If you are an 8th grader or a 9th grader or a 10th grader, 11th grader, and you're applying for college, and you get to see what it's like to have someone apply to you as if you were the admissions officer, that really can change your life as far as how you are going to prepare yourself to apply to college yourself. So I would suggest that anybody who has kids, obviously this year's seniors can forget about it, but as early as my son was in 8th grade, but as next year when this happens again, or if it happens, if another school does this year, make sure that you encourage your children to come. parents and children together, it's a great, not only a learning experience, but a great perspective, I think, on helping these kids see what they need to do and what they're up against in their applications. Ready? Okay.
Oh. This is getting complicated. I think I can do. There aren't very many. Sorry if I'm in your way. All right. So in November, Pat and Sydney and I, we were the only three, I think, right? Went to the CABE conference, and we heard lots of great things. We kind of split up and went to a bunch of different workshops, but there were two things that really stood out to us that we really wanted to bring back to the board to share and to talk about and maybe brainstorm further things after that. So the first one was a workshop that we went to. It was called Keeping Our Students, and it was presented by Old Saybrook. And I just wrote down, these were from my notes. They said that the 5 to 19-year-olds in their community have decreased by 40%. I don't know exactly over what time, but they're facing the same issues that we are, and have really come together as a district to try to tackle that, and they had some great ideas. So I put down most of my notes here just to sort of share, because even though we're doing some of these things, I think it's kind of nice to see that other districts are doing similar things and struggling with the same issues, and they had some good resources. Yeah, it's different than my Chromebook. All right, so one of the things they talked about was competing with the private schools. So they're similar. Old Saybrook is similar to us in that they have private schools very close by and in town. They also have a charter school, I believe, that they compete with. So they're really aware of the fact that families in their area have choices, and wanted to make sure that they were providing everything that they could so that hopefully more families made the choice of staying with them. They talked a lot about marketing and talking about how wonderful their school was. They called it Wonderful School, and they had other slogans and things, but it was just sort of that philosophy. They worked on advertising and social media, which we have definitely moved into a lot more this year, especially even since we were there in November. So we've made a lot of movement there. Oh yeah, the community connections, I thought they spoke a lot about how they work with their business association, they work with their town agencies to just be in contact so that they're working together, whether they're planning events or supporting, having the businesses come in and support things that the students are doing and vice versa, so that there's a lot of town-school connection. I thought that was great. The flyers to real estate agents, we've done that before. We've talked about that. And they have a committee, just like we do, that had parents and community members with PR background. They were working on a new logo and slogan, which we just did. So that was actually, we've completed since we were at the conference. They have this website that they referred to as National School Public Relations Association. It's a website that's a great resource that we might want to consider using. It has all sorts of ideas of how to promote yourself, but it's intended or designed for public schools. So I thought that was pretty interesting. One thing they talked a lot about were activities, and I think this is something that we could think about a little more here at Shepaug. So one of their presenters was their athletic director, but he's also their activities director. So he's in charge of all of the clubs and activities, or, I mean, he doesn't obviously run them all, but that's sort of, he's coordinating. And his goal is that 100% of the students are involved in something. They talked a lot about the students feeling connected to the school system and especially grabbing the middle schoolers before they go to the high school. He talked a lot about the sports, how they lose some of their students to the private schools because of sports. And he has been able to create some club teams, also co-op. He had some high school students that wanted to play lacrosse, and he was able to get them somehow work together. I don't know if that was with another public school or private school, but he never wanted sports to be a reason somebody left the school district, so he worked really hard to try to meet the needs of the different students. I know, being small, we want to be careful about adding additional teams because then we might not be able to field any of them, so we have to be careful. But on the flip side, if we've got that boy who leaves us because he wants to play football, well, now we don't have him in English or math either, so if we could find a way for him to co-op and go somewhere else, or like right now there's a club lacrosse team happening because it's a senior project, which is kind of cool because I know a lot of students like to play lacrosse. I know Litchfield has a club lacrosse program, and I think Wamogo students can participate in crew through the club. So there are definitely some public schools in our area that are sort of toying with this as well, so that they don't lose those middle schoolers because of sports. So I just liked that whole idea of being involved and really making sure that there's a club or a group for everyone out there, not just the sports, not just music, but tech, art, whatever it might be. And I know that we've done a lot more of that lately. We've got the debate club and some newspaper writing has been happening. So I think we're definitely making some good movement there. So they had this phrase, if you build it, they will come, talking about building their program and building, they talked a lot about their school pride, and they came up with an acronym for pride. It was perseverance, respect, integrity, dedication, excellence. And school pride was a huge piece of what they talked about in retaining their students, especially grabbing the middle school students and making them feel a part of the community so that they wouldn't want to leave, so that they felt that they were needed here, in the 612. One thing that they did that I thought was brilliant is they have an 8th grade activities fair where they have all of the high school students set up booths. Every sport, every club, every group, whatever it is, they make their display, their tri-board, whatever, and all of the 8th grade students get to come and visit them. They talk with the students. They put down their email if they're interested. That way the high school students can then reach out to those kids and say, hey, we could really use you next year, or we're looking forward to you coming up. We're graduating a bunch of seniors. So I thought that was a great idea. And the timing of that is important because, those 8th graders are visiting. They're either being visited by the agri-science programs or other technical schools, or they are going and visiting private schools. So we definitely want to make sure that we have that activities fair before either they've made those decisions, or at least while they're thinking about that, to kind of keep them, to make sure that they're keeping Shepaug in mind. I think, wait, I think it's on the next slide. Yeah, so exit interviews was something that they talked about being really important. They collected 3 years of data on every student that transferred out or did not return, so that they could really get a good sense of where people were going and why, and they made that a priority so that they could understand the decisions people were making. I know in last year's 8th grade class coming to 9th grade, we lost 14 students. 9 went to private school, 3 went to Nanawag, 1 moved, and I don't know where the other one went. And then we got some students in, we got some Sherman students, so it sort of balances out. But I think understanding the decisions that those families are making, not that we are going to bend over backwards to make every accommodation, we're always going to have some families choose private schools, but at least having an understanding of that, I think, is important. They also interviewed their seniors to start the alumni process, and the whole alumni piece was really important in keeping the community connected to the school, making sure that they were opening the conversation with those seniors so that they could keep up with them as they were going through college, so that they knew they could get the feedback on things that suggestions that they had as they were going through college. So exit interviews of families leaving, but also the graduating seniors, they felt that was very valuable feedback for the process. I think that was the last one. So that was it for the Keeping Our Students workshop that we did. Does anyone have questions? Or anything to add? Valerie?
Oh, God. Did you want to go first? Well, just real quick, sorry. Part of that exit interview, remember they talked about the freshmen coming back to the school, and they did, unless it wasn't part of that, they had freshmen in college come back to the high school and talk to the new seniors about their first semesters away at college and their first experiences and things they wish they knew leaving high school and things that they wish they worked harder at, or things that they're really excited that they did do in high school that carried on with them and helped them in their first semester and helped them go through their college career. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal, and I wish we had that. What? We did?
We do that every year.
Really? I never had that.
Yep, it's a great program. The kids really enjoy it.
Well, that's great. I'm jealous. Good for them.
Michael?
That's okay.
I love the idea at the very end there about making a connection with the seniors before they leave us. And I think there are lots of ways to keep them involved in Shepaug once they leave our halls. I think one obvious way is homecoming, to make it a legitimate homecoming, to actually make the homecoming
that'd be
game
nice.
coincide with a time when a lot of college students would be out. I know that sounds simple, but for some high schools will have homecomings and they will wonder why no one shows up because it's not coinciding with when college students are off. So I think that would be wonderful to kind of work with the athletic department on that, making that a reality. And then we just had a program at Wilton High where some of the recent grads, still in their 20s, came back and spoke. We had alumni panels about their college majors and then now their college careers. And it was wonderful because they have the energy and the enthusiasm to talk to the students. You know, I was in your shoes just, 5, 6 years ago, and this is the decision I made, and this is the major that I chose that led to this career. And we had the panels, we had 4 panels, so that every high school student was able to, or at least juniors and seniors were able to pick a panel that they were most interested in.
Cool.
So it worked out really, really well, and the kids are fascinated with the decisions that students make in terms of college majors, which they're going to be making soon themselves, and then careers, and hearing about that. So.
Yeah, I like that. Well, and it works, it's keeping those alumni connected to the school, and it's giving something for the students who are here to be connected to the alumni and some information. That's great. Yeah. Cool. Valerie, did you have something?
I was just Googling, and I mean, they're losing population, number one, and losing population to private schools. Both?
I don't remember them sharing statistics on exactly both. I think the 40% was population in general, and so everyone in that area are fighting for less students, basically.
Yeah.
Competing for less students, which is a similar situation we're in here. Overall population is declining, which is affecting, all of us.
Because if you Google the area, it looks like there are only 3 private schools, 2 of which are more the lower grades. And I think actually one of them is a nursery school. And we are so stuck here with really, full private schools, the Gunnery, Rumsey, Montessori. I mean,
Well,
it's.
and then even beyond, for high school, people then are also looking at Taft and Canterbury and
yeah,
Hotchkiss.
Westover. I mean,
Westover,
it's a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, well, and some people are going to make that choice, and I think that's okay. Some families are going to choose that. I think what they were talking about is just understanding the decisions that are being made and why, and making sure that we're not missing something really obvious.
Yeah.
We're not going to retain all of the students. They're always going to have some choice, and I don't think, if you look at Dr. Prouda's reports, we aren't losing more students to private school as a percentage of the class than we have in the past. I think that number is held very constant. I mean, it fluctuates a little because we're so small, 2 more students and it moves, but I don't think we're seeing that change. It's just a reality that some always go and there are less. So,
Yeah. Well, there's some comfort in that it's shared, and I'm kind of surprised down by the shore. It's a real issue. I wouldn't have thought that.
They talked about a charter school too, as magnet schools. So I think they have other choices. They might not all be private choices, but they have choices, and so it's affecting their total numbers in the public school. Sure. Anything? Yeah, I have one more to talk about. I just have to figure out how to find it. All right, the other piece that we wanted to share with the board was the keynote speaker that CABE had this year was Dr. Yang Zhao. And it's hard to even try to condense his talk. He had so much information. That's why I put his website up there. His presentation slides are there on his website. He's written numerous books. If you look along on the website, along the right-hand side, there are like 20 articles he's written. So it's really hard to condense it all, but I tried a little bit. So Catching Up or Leading the Way, American Education in the Age of Globalization. That was the last book he wrote. That was sort of the title that he was working off, although it was interesting. He kind of jumped around a little bit. So what he started off talking about was basically the old news. It was talking about standardized tests and the fact that everyone always talks about how the U.S. does so poorly as a nation as compared to all the rest of the other countries, or a lot of the developing countries. And he had all these slides on all the different PISA reports, which is an international test, talked about the nation at risk and all of the sort of policy that came from that, because students from the United States weren't performing as well on these math and reading tests. And he talked a lot about some of the Asian countries. China performed at the top. It was #1 for many, many of the years. Japan was right up there too. Singapore, we hear about the Singapore method, all that stuff. So I did not do that justice, but he spent probably 20 minutes developing the concept that, with all the evidence, it's all there in his presentation. What he tried to move to then was to explain how many of those countries are now trying to copy what has been happening in the United States in education. Because as we move into this technology, into a time where computers can do so many things for you, creativity and ingenuity are really going to be valued so much more than a lot of the rote things that were being tested on all of these tests. He actually said this. He said, what they don't tell you, they tell you that their reading programs will help your students score really well on the test, but what they don't tell you is that they kill the love of reading. And if you, I don't know, what are all those videos, the 20,000 minutes, hours, I don't know, but when you follow a day in the life of the students all around the world, a lot of those kids are in their desks for hours and hours and hours and up till late at night. They are working hard and burnt out from studying in order to do well on those tests. But what they don't have, and the United students from the US and some of the other developing countries have, are a sense of confidence about what they want to do in the world and creativity. So things that are harder to quantify, but that are valued. And just one data point that he shared with us, he was looking at patent filings. The U.S. had twice as many as China in 2008, yet they were 20% of the world's population, 9% of the world's GDP. They had 12% of the world's research and development expenditure, but they had only 1% of patent filings. And then he showed a whole bunch of quotes and articles from leaders in Japan saying, why can we not develop our own Steve Jobs? And they're realizing that they have a problem. So what he talked about is our education, the education model of taking all these different people, different intelligences, culturally diverse, different interests, curiosities, passions, and putting them into a mold that was designed for the industrialization and creating good workers for factories. And what I think is so timely about this is that it is a lot about what we were talking about in the multi-age workshop, about how the moving through the grades at these very regimented times, everyone doing the exact same thing, was an educational system that was designed for an industrialized workforce, for those people to be able to move into factories and other positions where they would be given a task and asked to perform it. And that model is not really what our economy is based on anymore. So what he's talking about is a new paradigm of taking all of those different intelligences, diversity, creativity, and developing a school model that enhances those talents and recognizes those talents and celebrates them, because that is what we're going to need. And this is where he then had all sorts of statistics, which I did not paste up here, about the economies in these different countries and the unemployment rate of various graduates from the different universities. And the United States is doing really well. Our students are creative. They go on to be entrepreneurs. They they are the ones filing for the patents. So there is something that's going on, but that we need to make sure that we are nurturing and not getting really hung up on the fact that we're not performing as well on some of those standardized tests. I just threw this up here because he had talked about the multiple intelligences and being really recognizing that we shouldn't button everybody into a certain mold, but that there are multiple ways people can be successful. And what we need to do is to try to find ways to recognize that success, measure it, and explain it. So, and that's where he didn't have all the answers. Just sort of pointed out the things that we need to be looking at. So this is partially from him and then just partially myself. How do we measure success? Talking about taking that leap of faith to move away from standardized tests. We know that they're important. We know that they're needed, that they're benchmarks to certain skills that we know our students need. But we've been talking in long-range planning and at the elementary level about individualized learning, about freeing up time for personalizing your education. If you've mastered some techniques or standards, concepts, of being able to then use your time to develop some other interests. We have to find we're going to have to talk about that as a community to figure out how we measure that and what success looks like, and then figure out how we measure that and explain that to people. He talked a lot, I can't remember the exact phrase, maybe you guys will help me remember, but the not back living at home quality. He talked about the students who go off to college, and if they are not coming back to live at home, then you were successful, is basically what he was saying. They're happily employed, you were successful. But you know, that's a long way down the road. But that got me to thinking about the college completion rate, which was something that we talked about a while back. In 2011, the News Times did an article where they published the college completion rate of all the high school graduates in the state of Connecticut. And at that time, our class of 2004, so what they do is they give them 6 years to complete a degree. Think they count 2-year as well, 4-year or 2-year. Anyway, we had 64% of our students had completed college, which put us 9th in the state out of 174 schools. It was a phenomenal year and a really pretty neat thing to hang our hat on, even though we weren't necessarily tracking it and we weren't necessarily, I mean, that's always our goal, but I don't know that we had made conscious decisions to make sure that that was what was happening. You can go, so the National Student Clearinghouse prepares all of this information. You don't have to do this all yourself. And if you go to trendct.org, they've got this there for every high school in the state, and you can just kind of click on it, and it marches you through each year, and it's pretty interesting. The last year that they had for now is the class of 2008, which I think they haven't, has that given them 6 years? Oh, no, they hadn't. It only went through 2014 when I was looking at it. So they have to put in the 2015. So they still have another year to complete their graduation. But at that point, 56% of our students had completed college. But anyway, it was just something that I thought might be at least one indicator that we could look at. But as I noticed when I was on the I think it was the Trends website, they didn't actually know where some of our students were because they were not in the database. So that's one of those places where reaching out to the alumni, making sure our kids are in there. Somehow Naviance and the National Student Clearinghouse are hooked up, and I know now that that our guidance department brings all the students in and gets them hooked up on Naviance. So the tracking should improve with every year. What's hard about this data point, though, is that there's a huge delay on the data. You know, the class of 2008, it takes them a couple years to get all that data in there. So if you're tweaking your curriculum or your guidance or your advisory or whatever it is, you got to wait a long time to see if it worked. But this is one of those places where having the alumni come back and talk to our students and say, hey, you know, what really helped you complete college? You know, what did you think was the most important point? And making sure guidance is helping our students make good choices when they go off to college. Because I think college completion is one of those things that is easy to explain, that we can that you can put in the newspaper, and it doesn't require a lot of tweaking. Everyone gets that. The unemployment rate of college graduates is much lower than students who don't have a degree of some sort. So it's obviously a desirable thing to kind of work on. It doesn't mean it's the only path, but I think that's maybe something that we could think about. And what I like about it is college completion. I mean, that you could be a music major, you could be a business major, you could be an engineer. It's giving you skills to go out into the world in whatever your chosen field is. It's not an SAT score. It's a recognition of skills and talents in a diverse area. And we don't really have to do much except track our students and make sure that they're prepared to get there. You know, if we're looking at trying to measure diverse success in a pre-K-12 environment, whether we're talking about portfolios, I don't know what we're talking about. I don't know how we measure that. We look for growth. We look for improvement. I guess tonight's concert is a great example. You could see a lot of growth between, you know, those music students, 5th grade to high school. That's not even that long. They make a lot of progress. So anyway, some food for thought. You can check out his website. It really got us thinking about finding other ways to see success in students, because that's what really the future economy needs. So that's it. Are there any questions on that one?
You don't want. He's really very humorous in his speaking. Michelle, you did a great job summarizing, but if you go to his website and, you know, watch a couple of his videos, you really get a good handle on his feel for what it means to be successful. And that stuck with me too. It's getting out of your parents' basement. That's what it was. So that was a big deal. You know, so he was really excellent. But you really, I think, brought in the points that he made that can relate back to us. So I think you did a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, hold on a second. Do you want to say something, Greg?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm really sorry that I missed that I couldn't be at that thing. That sounds like it was really good.
Microphone.
I would read his website. There's some interesting articles on there, and one that ties in beautifully to tonight's long-range planning meeting on the issue of testing. Because what he's saying about testing is, we're out there at this myopic focus on high-stakes testing, and we are worshiping countries that have used this kind of process and this model, and all they have proven, in his words, are that you can homogenize your kids to the point where what they basically are doing is reflecting the skills that authority, he calls it authoritarianism, wants to have in the kids. So I'll tell you what, you all need to read after tonight's long-range planning, you need to read that article and decide how much testing you really want and what kind. Because he says we're really pointing the fingers at teachers, we're doing all kinds of things, and it's completely unnecessary, it's wrong, and we're headed in the wrong, kind of a radical, actually, in that respect. But I definitely read it, it's fascinating stuff.
For the record, what Greg is talking about is the Long Range Planning Committee. We were talking about a reimagining high school initiative that Lori Ferreira is going to be heading, and it has to do with a kind of a grassroots political effort to determine exactly how we foresee our high schools in the future, and having the stakeholders in the community and on the staff work together to determine that and to send resolutions to the state to be able to the state legislator to be able to give us the freedom or at least the regulations to sculpt our future in a way that is perhaps different than, as Greg pointed out, something entirely based on standardized testing. Anybody else for Michelle? Thank you very much. It was great to have a background in those two things. One thing I want to mention is that Michelle alluded to a 2011 News Times article. That was actually the News Times reporting on the Board of Regents study that came out in 2011 because it was just about 7 years after the 2004 graduates completed their 6 years to get their degrees. Board of Regents, if you don't know, they are the board that governs the state universities and community colleges in Connecticut. And I believe that this study is what led to a rethinking of college and career readiness, which occurred in the last 5 years since the study came out. And I think that Shepaug has obviously done a lot to evolve in that regard, too. And there's Kim to talk about that.
I'm just remembering the first time that we talked about this as a board, and one of the questions that was asked was, how did the class of 2004 do on our CAP scores? And while I'm sure they were wonderful kids, they were a non-remarkable class. I'm very confident that as more stats come out, Shepaug does a very good job of letting the kids, explore and create and think for themselves, which is why there is such a high completion rate. And if you want to see where that's defined in our school, just look up.
Right. Sometimes it's not a matter of fitting the pegs into the holes, it's having pegs who can build really great pegboards. Yeah. Next on the agenda is policies. These are two policies that are here for second reading. We passed them in first reading. Last time Michelle wasn't here, and I did it, but now she's here. I don't have to. Take it away.
Sure you don't want to? Right, there's so much technology. Okay, so for 118.5, personnel, rights, responsibilities, duties, this was in your email packet. It is, the blue highlighted language is the new language that is required by law. This is, came through, I don't remember if this was the audit or it's just new law. But it has to do with use of the computer network and the employees understanding that the work there is not private, is sort of the gist of most of that. I don't know if you had discussion about this last time? No? Everyone was good with that? Greg?
We approve for second reading policy, proposed policy 4118.5, personnel rights, responsibilities.
Second. Sorry.
Any discussion? There we go.
And just to make clear that the 4218 is the administrative portion of it versus the 4118.
That did come up.
Right.
Personnel certified is 4-1, non-certified is 4-2.
Right.
Any other discussion? All right.
So
All
this
in
goes
favor?
for both.
Yes, it goes for both.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Thank you.
Just say that again.
Oh, sorry, all in, you didn't need to hear that, but what you saw was all in favor, none opposed, and none abstained. The motion passes. Thank you. Second policy, Michelle.
All right, this policy for 118.11, personnel non-discrimination. The new language is highlighted in blue, and this is also due to a update in the laws. It is more protected classes for non-discrimination. We have gender identity or expression as being a protected class.
Move to adopt is on a second reading?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. And seeing nothing else on our agenda, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All right. Thank you. We are adjourned at 8:24. Thank you.